Back again to talk some NBA. We're obviously going to get into some changes that are going around in the league in terms of uh, management changes and players getting injured and needing surgery, and so we will get into all of that. But first, we got to talk about the important thing is before we get too far away from the date, I guess I should say, is the Grizzlies now have the NBA record with a 73-point victory over the Thunder. They won 152 to 79.
Holy crap.
Which is like,
what do you say?
damn.
What do you say in the locker room after that? Seriously.
From which side?
Because OKC. No, Memphis is easy. Memphis had the greatest night in recent Memphis history. Memphis the same night had the 73-point win over the Thunder, and then also had the 3-6 Mafia Bone Thugs and Harmony versus. And I think it's pretty widely accepted that 3-6 Mafia won that versus convincingly. I personally have always liked 3-6 Mafia's music more than Bone Thugs. Bone Thugs has records, obviously, but like 3-6 Mafia has. I love 3-6 Mafia. But what a great night for that city. 73 points is absolutely incredible. It's almost unheard of. Just the fact that, again, like these are NBA teams. Like this isn't some random college. This isn't a high school game. These are two professional basketball teams, and getting out of the gym feels like the understatement of the century. Obviously, great for Memphis. They're in the books now. I mean, even at the peak of the process for the Sixers, I mean, I remember games where they lost by, I think it was like 45 or 50. That happened like twice over a stretch of 3 games where it was pretty disheartening. 73 just feels unfathomable. Like and because just to consistently get it in garbage time too. Like that's the thing is in blowouts a lot of times when you just empty out your bench and you start, you get guys that are playing hard who are literally like playing for their careers in some cases, getting those minutes to get some tape and in some real game action. The fact that Memphis maintained that, I love the crowd still chanting, I love the crowd chanting defense at the end of that game too, when they're up 70 plus points. Like I love it, absolutely. Like try to break the record. You got to love the energy. For OKC, I mean, good lord. And now, granted, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander wasn't playing, Josh Giddey wasn't playing, so right off the rip, you could say their 2 best players aren't even in the lineup. But holy hell, guys! Like again, you're an NBA roster. Like this is bad. And I know OKC is like one of the youngest teams in the league. Like they are borderline, I would argue at points, a G League roster, but whew, that is something.
So obviously the largest margin of victory of all time, the leaderboard for anybody else that's wondering, they passed the Cavs versus Heat back in 1991. That was a 68-point victory. The third biggest largest margin of victory is the Pacers versus Trailblazers back in 98. That was 65 points. Then you got
who won those games? Who were the second and third? Like who won those games?
So the Cavs won against the Heat in 91.
Okay.
And I'm going to assume that the way that NBA.com has this up, they have the Grizzlies and the Cavs listed as the first team. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming the trend is the first team is the team that won. Maybe I don't know something, but here it is. So Pacers beat the Trailblazers. I could have that wrong. I don't want to speak out of turn, but Pacers beat the Trailblazers in 98 by 65. We could check that. And then Lakers Warriors in 72 was a 63-point victory, and Warriors Kings again in 91. Damn, 91 had 2 of the top 5.
Yeah, right. You're crazy. What was in the water in 91?
Yeah.
It was the Pacers.
Okay.
The Pacers did win that game. We're good there.
So then Lakers, most likely, if I'm following this trend correctly, Lakers beat the Warriors and then Warriors beat the Kings.
That Pacers final score is outrageous. It was 124 to 59. An NBA team put up 59 points in 48 minutes of professional basketball. That is disgusting.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to see what the 72 Lakers Warriors Where is the margin of victory? I'm assuming it's this one. Yeah, it was the Lakers beat the Warriors 162-99. That's still pretty high. That's actually really high scoring.
Yeah.
Holy
Real
cow.
quick, real quick with OKC, we're not going to go super in depth on them in this episode or anything like that, but there's been some talk popping up recently because I mean, when you look at the state of the Thunder right now, obviously they have all these zillion picks, and that's the thing is they haven't traded anybody for
Mhm.
they have an unprecedented essentially amount of first round picks. They have a bona fide good young star potential player in Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I think
Yep.
Josh Giddey, who they just took at number 6, obviously this year, looks to be a pretty good one. I think he can be a part of that going forward. Like Lou Dort a lot. I think Lou Dort is a good rotation guy.
Who, by the
Again,
way, put up 15 in that game.
great. So I mean, again, I think he's a good rotation guy. Obviously, an excellent defender. I don't think anyone's expecting him to be like the star that you build around, but I think he's a guy that you keep and can view as a part of that core moving forward. I don't really know what OKC has besides that. And at some point, again, they have a lot of picks. So that's the beauty of this is you only got to hit on a few to build together your core really fast. But again, I think that this
Well,
goes back to there is a lot of risk with all this drafting. Like you can see again, the Sixers had a billion other ways of self-sabotaging along the way, but they had a zillion picks too, and a lot of these haven't panned out. And then it doesn't look as rosy as you would like it to be. OKC does run the risk of that. Like I'm not fully in panic mode with OKC yet, but at some point you do want to see them start to grow and actually win games.
well, and I would say too, I don't think you necessarily have to use all of those picks on picking a player. You can package those together to either get a higher pick or a star player, that could be another angle that they could
Yeah.
be potentially taking with it.
For sure, they have a lot of flexibility, and again, that's the most important thing to have, and that's the beauty of having all those picks. Is you're right, just off that alone, they can insert themselves in any conversation to, even if
Yeah.
it's not to be a star player, to be that type of third team that can get involved, where you snag a good rotation player along the way. Like the ultimate example of that this year of just becoming a third team and getting involved, for example, is the Cavs with Jared Allen. Like, look at how well Jared Allen's playing on the Cavs right now. That was such a savvy move for them to get in on that trade, land a good quality young player who essentially the Nets had to let go because of money reasons. It wasn't anything to do with how he was playing. And next thing you know, you have something there. Like that's the type of moves that OKC, or when you're a rebuilding team, when you have a little bit longer of a timeline that you can pull off, that's what you'd like to see OKC get in if they're going to get in on a deal. Again, I like what they've done overall. Like with Al Horford, for example, like they were somebody that took that contract when the Sixers wanted to move on, and then they were in a position to move him back to the Celtics. Kemba Walker was the same way, where they had eventually, ended up moving him as well. They were able to hold his salary. Um, for example, like with the John Wall situation, they're a team who, in theory, could do something like that. Like you can shed bad contracts to OKC, but at some point, you do want to see it, start to come together a little bit more. I'm not just again, I'm not going to indict the whole plan because they got blown out by 73 points. Again, they were missing their two best players. I just think it's a fun historic anomaly at this point. But I do think you can start to like we're getting to the point where we can start to ask a couple of questions about OKC, but far from
Mhm.
panic mode. I don't want to suggest otherwise.
No, and I guess if you were to tell me a team at the beginning of the season got blown out by 73 points, I guess the team I would assume it is either the Rockets or, well, no, not necessarily, because I guess at the beginning we thought Wall was gonna be playing more.
I mean, I
Uh,
still think the Rockets would have been prime blowout candidates, even though
yeah.
I mean, I got to give the Rockets credit. Like we mentioned bringing the Rockets up as maybe the worst team of all time. Like they were in records for that, and they've just casually rattled off 6 straight. They're not going to be balling this week, but they pulled. I mean, they're not even right now. They're the third worst team in the West. They're above OKC and New Orleans record wise. And well above. I mean, they've got 3 games on Detroit at this point in terms of
Mhm.
wins. They've got 2 on Orlando. So yeah, good for Houston. I wouldn't have had them. My teams would have been for a 73-point blowout like that. I would have said, yeah, like Orlando, Detroit, maybe Houston. I mean,
Yeah.
OKC would have been in that conversation
OKC.
too.
Yeah, for sure would have been there.
New Orleans, assuming health. Like if I had thought everybody would healthy, I wouldn't have had New Orleans in that conversation. New Orleans,
Yeah.
if I had said, hey, they don't have Zion and are missing Brandon Ingram for large portions of the year, might have been a different conversation.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to bring up for warm-up jumpers is Ray Allen. In general, because he's about to take 2 L's. And this is more of a casual L, but Kevin Durant just passed Ray Allen for 24th on the all-time career points list. He did that on Saturday when the Nets lost to the Bulls. So congratulations to Kevin Durant. And then obviously the one everybody's already talking about is Curry about to pass Ray Allen. He needs 23 more threes. As of recording this, I do know that they play the Magic tonight. So that number could potentially be lower.
23 tonight.
So that number could potentially be lower. Now, I'll put this out there. So he plays the Magic tonight on NBA League Pass. I don't think anybody's surprised about that. Wednesday, they play the Trailblazers on ESPN. Mm-hmm. Saturday, they actually play the 76ers on ABC. Monday, they play the Pacers on NBA TV. And then Tuesday, they play the Knicks on TNT. So if everything paces out, he's averaging 5 a game. Mm-hmm. So in theory, by the 14th of December, after these games have all happened, the Knicks, like, he'll either be really damn close or have already passed it. Mm-hmm. Where do you think would be like the best? I mean, obviously doing it against the Knicks on TNT Tuesday night would probably be like the biggest like show of it, right?
Yeah, if it's on national television, I think any of those games that are on national television will be probably the biggest show of it. I mean, it'd be cool if he could do it in the Bay Area as well. Obviously, given that's where he spent his entire career. I think there's some, any record would be cool to break on your home court. They could celebrate it a little more. They'll have graphics and stuff like that. So
true, but I guess they're in New York. So part of me feels like it'd be kind of cool for him to break the record, in Madison Square Garden. Like, isn't that kind of cool? Like,
I mean, sure, you're giving. I mean, is that New York? I guess it's not New York bias, but it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's cool because we're giving New York credit, and I think anything that happens, given just the historicness of the venue with MSG and how much is there and all the great games we've seen there over the years. So yeah, I mean, I think that will always factor in. Maybe more than any other venue in the NBA. Because I think there are markets that obviously are equivalent to that draw in New York, but if he breaks it at the arena formerly known as the Staples Center, I don't think that has it as much. Though again, if Curry breaks it in New York, I don't necessarily think it does as much. To me, it's just about the national TV element. That way, it's like a lot of people are going to see it potentially. There will be more eyes on that game than there would be just a regular broadcast Warriors game. It's interesting with Steph because we're going to celebrate this, obviously, like it's a massive deal, but Steph is just going to shatter this record. Like he's not even close to being done. There aren't many records in the NBA that are untouchable at this point. Like the only one I can think of is free throw percentage when Jose Calderon he was like 97.2% for a season from the line. It's absolutely outrageous. There aren't many other NBA records that I consider like totally untouchable. Like Wilt with 100 is maybe the only other one. This Steph Curry record.
Sorry, I want to correct you. 98.1% free throw percentage.
Oh my God. Like that is so crazy. And it wasn't even like he was shooting an insignificant volume either. Like he shot one a game.
He made 151 free throws out of 154 free throws.
That is absolutely incredible. Like that's a really good record to be held for a while. And probably one of the more slept on records in the league, honestly. Like Jose Calderon obviously had a great NBA career. He was in the league for I think over a decade, but nobody I necessarily thinks about that one. Wilt with 100, I don't think is getting broken. I mean, it's still like the closest anyone got obviously was Kobe with 81, and that still is remarkable to me.
And
like,
Book got close recently, didn't he? What did he get? He was in the 70s, or did he get
Oh, Book was in the 70s. Book
Yeah.
got 71, I think, against Boston. Wait, and they lost, which is still the most bananas thing of all time. Like, Book had over 70 and they
Right.
lost. Like, that's actually unbelievable. Melo was close to 70 one time with the
Yeah.
Knicks in like 2013 because I remember watching it and he didn't play the fourth, and I was really upset he didn't play the fourth because I wanted him to at least try to go for 81. 100 seems unpredictable. Steph's 3 record is gonna be pretty untouchable. I mean, I think there's a chance Clay breaks Ray Allen's record too if he
Well,
comes back healthy. But
but
Steph is just so good at this, man.
well, so I wonder though, because everybody says Curry changed the game to be more of a 3-point game like it is now and the way we see it. So could there be a potential argument that maybe at the beginning few years the game was still changing a little bit and wasn't as quick to get onto the 3-point attack like they are? So maybe there's somebody that comes in that is as good as Curry down the line and just hits the ground running from year one and maybe doesn't deal with any injuries and just, maybe a situation like that could get somebody close.
I agree with you in the 100% in the sense that with the league changing, like the league is definitely different from when Steph Curry came into it.
Mhm.
Since we
Yeah, how
started this
many
podcast, like the clip of people shooting threes is obviously radically gone up. I mean, the prime example that I always use is Brooke Lopez. Brooke Lopez, I think, took like 7 threes his entire NBA career. It felt like,
now he's taking
and
like
now he's
9.
shooting how many a game to the point where he's got a nickname called Splash Mountain. Like there are multiple players who reinvented themselves
So
like that.
so yeah, Curry's first 3 years, and the 3rd year doesn't necessarily, I mean, he played 23 games.
Yeah.
Um, about 4, we'll round up, say taking 5 threes a game. That's it. He's up to taking 13 a game this year, 12 last year, about 10 the year before that. So,
Mhm.
say there is somebody that can shoot Steph's at 43% career 3-point percentage. So say somebody comes in and can also shoot 43% career, but comes in starting at 13 3-pointer attempts a game. Now, I don't know if you do that with a rookie or something like that, but you know what I mean? Like, say they're already coming in shooting 7 a game and making more or the same percentage as Curry was. In theory, if they have the same length career, they would or could potentially hit whatever record he ends up getting to, which is not saying it's not going to be a lot. I just feel like there's potential in that because he had to change the game where whoever could potentially beat him might just be able to like jump right in and hit the ground running.
No, and it's plausible, and that's what it would have to be essentially.
Hmm.
It's just one of those things for me where it's not even just the stylistic change; it's the just Steph Curry is so good at it. Like that's the thing is like he not only like he changed the game because he's so dominant at this one particular skill. Now, obviously, Steph does way more than that. That's why he's
Of
one of the
course.
all-time
Of
greats.
course.
It's just that's the key skill that I think he's better at than everyone else. Like it's just a situation where I have to see it. I don't want to say
Yeah.
it's implausible because anything could happen, but it's like Steph Curry is so great that I have to see somebody doing what he's
So,
doing for this long for me to even consider to put them in the ballpark and think that that record is untouchable because I mean, right now, like we see guys who, I mean, Dame is closer to Steph's age, but he's a guy who plays like Steph. Trae Young is another comparison where it's somebody who will
yeah.
just take all sorts of threes like that, and somebody who you could see maybe, being in the ballpark when his career is over with, assuming that he continues the clip he's at now. But these guys aren't. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Is it's just
Yeah.
like Steph. Warriors Twitter loves saying Steph better. He is like that's the thing is like he does rule this record.
Well, so taking out the 2019-2020 season for Steph, because he only played 5 games.
Mhm.
So I don't count that season. What would you say is his lowest 3-point percentage season, if you had to guess?
Oh God, it's not as. I mean, I guess his rookie year. No.
His rookie year, he shot 43%, so he was about his average there. That's
Okay.
what his like average of his career is. His highest looks like it might have been 2 years later, but that was only 23 games, so I'll keep going. Say
Yeah.
his 2014, 2015 season where he shot 44%. Actually, the next year, 15, 16, he shot 45% from three. His lowest, if you want to count it, would either be the 2016, 2017 season when he shot 41%, 41.1. The only thing lower, and the reason I haven't counted it is it's this season where he's 41.0%. He's never been under 41 for a season. The only season that was lower was the 5 games in 2019, 2020, which I don't think should count. He shot 24 there. He got injured. That doesn't count to me.
No, of course it should. And the 2016, 2017 year was the year he won the MVP. No, like that was unanimous MVP year. So he was having his worst clip, and oh, by the way, was the best player in the league the entire year.
Yep.
It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it is unprecedented. Ray, no disrespect to Ray Allen, no disrespect to Reggie, but it's just on another planet. It's hard for me to see that record break. Real quick before we get out of here, because we've been doing this for a while, I do want to go back to KD because I'm looking at the scoring chart right now. So KD, as we're recording this, is at 24,512 points. He's just under 300 behind Patrick Ewing for 23. Patrick Ewing's at like 24.8. Jerry West then 25,192, and then Reggie Miller 25,279, and then Alex English at top 20. He's at number 20 right now, 25,613. I mean, KD will more than likely pass Patrick Ewing before the end of the year. Will likely, I would imagine, as well pass Jerry West, and could very well. I mean, he's going to be top 20 here sooner than later, with a chance to obviously, it starts to bunch. Like KD's at 24.5 right now. For some perspective, we talked about Carmelo Anthony moving up a little bit earlier this year. Carmelo Anthony's at 9. He's at 27.7. So, KD could really, I mean, it would be pretty plausible that he'll be in the top 10 in scoring by the time all is said and done.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I wonder where he does land. Like, do you think he has the potential to say get past Jordan and Dirk and Kobe? Do you think he gets up there to 4-5 range?
I mean, sure. If he stays healthy, I don't see why not. I mean, he's averaging a high clip still. To me, it's all about health with KD. I mean, that's the only reason I think he's probably not there already. It's just the sheer amount of games that he's missed. But I mean, given the offensive load that he's carrying in Brooklyn right now, that he's expected to continue to carry with Kyrie out indefinitely, like he's going to move up these charts, and I certainly think he has the potential to be. Dirk and Kobe. I mean, Kobe especially. Kobe's all the way up at 4. I mean, he scored 33,000 points. He's still got a long way to go, but I mean, KD's skill set is going to translate. I think he's the type of player that can play for a long time, assuming he's healthy. He can shoot the basketball. His game's not based on athleticism.
It is wild that we have in the top 25 right now 3 active players.
Yeah.
There are 3 guys playing.
Well, 3 active players. And I mean, a lot of these guys, I mean, with Dirk, with Kobe, with Tim Duncan at 15, with Paul Pierce at 16, KG at 18, Vince Carter at 19. Like, these are all guys that have played
recently.
Like, these aren't, some of those guys retired within the past 5, 6, 7 years. The game is more offensive based now. There's no way around it. I think a lot of these records will, fall sooner than later. Obviously, if you're Kareem, if you're Karl Malone, if you're MJ, it's a little more, solidified. You got to be an all timer to break some of these, but they're not untouchable. Guys are breaking in, and I mean, not even, Vince Carter's a guy, for example, at number 19. I don't think people would guess that Vince Carter's at 19, but just with longevity, if you're good for, if you're able to have a good 20-year career, stay healthy, you're going to at least have a shot in today's league if you're consistently putting up all-star caliber numbers. Welcome, everybody, to the Driving Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rayfuse. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Justin Kuzar.
Hello, TikTok.
Well, that feels ironic to tweet to promote another platform. It's like when everybody got it's like when everybody got Twitter and then went on Facebook and said, "Hey, follow me on Twitter." This is my
hey, I'm here. That is actually Luca, who is now on TikTok, and he does trick shot warm up basketball videos. His first one was like he like juggled the basketball with his shoulder a few times until it went in. So that's his thing, I guess.
Hey, there we go. Listen, I mean, that's the type of content we're here for. I mean, even going back to Steph, that's what do we see from Steph? Him taking all those ridiculous jumpers during warmups from like in the
I
hallway and on the second level. And
hold on. Sorry. Not to stop the podcast here, but I'm upset that we are not giving the same energy. We are out here talking about Steph about to pass and be one of the top scorers of all time, and we're out here just acting like Iggy is not about to be top 20 in steals of all time.
I honestly didn't know that was about to happen, or I would give him more credit to it.
He has 1,743 steals. Paul Pierce, who is above him, at 1,752. So he is 9 away from that. And then Sean Marion's next at 1,759.
So I don't think Iguodala is a Hall of Famer, but I think he's like a prime Hall of Great candidate, if that makes sense. Like
Okay.
somebody who just pretty much
Did
had
everything.
the best type of NBA career you could have.
Yeah.
Was an all-star level player at one point. Was a key part of multiple championship teams. I mean, hell, I'd argue the Warriors have maybe leaned on him a little too much in the early going of the season, just with his age at this point. There's no way around it. But obviously back home in the Bay, fitting in quite well as one would expect. No, Andre Iguodala is an all-time great, and I, again, not to put the homer hat on for a little bit, but I'm glad that his image, because even I was guilty of it back in the day. Like Andre Iguodala's image in Philadelphia was never great. I feel like people
hated him.
wanted him to be
Yeah.
Iverson, and I think that was unfair. I think everybody drafted him, or they expected when he was drafted that he was going to be a guaranteed like franchise carrier. And I mean, they were successful with him as the lead guy and with some of those squads. Obviously they were never, title bound or anything like that. But Iguodala, a lot of what he did, especially in his prime too, didn't show up on the stat chart. Like advanced stats weren't as big of a thing back then. Steals and blocks and deflections and all those other things that Iguodala's been good at, especially during the prime of his career, that just doesn't really show up on the stat sheet as much. And so I think that that's something that, as we've grown and fans have grown to evolve in their understanding of the game, I think people have come to appreciate Iguodala's game a whole lot more.
Yeah, I completely agree. And by the way, Iverson, because we were drawing the comparison, is number 14 on the steals leader list.
Yeah, no surprise there. He
Mhm.
certainly was racking them up a ton. I'm honestly surprised a tiny bit he's not higher on the scoring list. He's actually 26.
Oh,
KD passed him earlier this year. He and Ray Allen are not that far apart. So actually, yeah, AI officially out of top 25 with KD moving up. So listen, leagues are changing, man. Records are always meant to be broken. There's no doubt about that. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read it on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play Store, Spreaker, TuneIn, Amazon Music, anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us.
Yep, and find us on YouTube. Head to Drive and Dish on YouTube. You can find us, and be sure to hit subscribe. It's essentially just a video version of the podcast, but for whatever reason, people like that a lot more than some just listening to podcasts. So we are there as well, and we promise to keep it as clean as possible for you on the YouTube page.
Yeah, exactly. Clean as possible. That's what we're here for. And now a
Mhm.
word from our sponsors.
So
Speaking of as clean as possible, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor on this episode. My bad, Justin. I don't know what you're going with here, but I want to give a shout out to Manscaped. You can use the promo code DISH20. Black Friday and Cyber Monday may be over, but we are still in full swing. Hanukkah was mad early this year. So if you're doing Hanukkah shopping, you're a little late because it's over. But Christmas shopping still going on in full swing right now. Go on Manscaped. They released the Lawnmower 4.0. It's a wonderful trimmer for all your sensitive areas. It's got a ceramic head. It's got an LED light, so you can see what's going on. It's got different types of speeds. So again, it can be a little tough down there sometimes. So you gotta use caution, and the Manscaped Lawnmower makes sure that you can do that. Plenty of other great products on the website as well. I talked about their anti-chafing stuff last week. They also have ball deodorizer, which is great. Not gonna lie, if you're coming back from the gym, you gotta swing by the grocery store or something real quick. I had to swing by CVS. Didn't want to be offensive. Used some of that the other day, and it smells really great. It's vegan, so you don't have to worry about being cruel to animals.
Mhm.
Appeals to everybody there in that front. So definitely check that out. Promo code Dish20, and you can get 20% off and free shipping.
Perfect. And so we switch over to the Blazers, who are going through, who probably need some of that anti-chafing stuff because
They need a
they
lot. They need the full
there's
package.
there's a lot of chafing going on. There's a lot. The team feel well. Okay, let me put this out there. I feel like from an outside looking in, it seems more discombobulated than maybe it actually is, if that makes sense. So they fired Neil Olshey for violations of team's code of conduct. And I was listening to Woj talk about it a little bit, and he kept bringing up like, you're in this like competitive environment, this team environment, and kept being like, other NBA teams are going to be paying close attention to this because he's never had a complaint filed on him before. And this outside investigation looking into it to see what it was going on. And I don't think we necessarily know fully what was going on. And I saw some reports saying they're going to keep it mostly under wraps because, to protect the parties involved and stuff like that. And it was outside organization. So they're not probably going to give anything away. But if it's like, I don't know. Like, I guess it just depends on the violation that had happened. And I don't think we'll ever fully like get the full story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a double. I think it's two prongs here. Number one
Yeah.
is I think he was credibly accused of workplace issues, regardless
Yes.
of what it was in terms of harassment. He was, by a number of people accused of that, and so I think that, they had been investigating this for a month, essentially,
Hmm.
pretty much concluded that it was toxic enough, and
Yeah.
I think that was the excuse they used to break ties. The real reason they also used to break ties is that it kind of just was time anyway, and that
Yeah.
everyone has been calling for this for a while. I mean, our biggest issue with the Blazers in terms of basketball is that just they've been stagnant. They've been
Hmm.
running the same thing for 4 or 5 years, essentially acting like it's going to be different. I mean, for better or for worse, this core has just kind of ran its peak. It's time to shake things up. It's time to, they fired Terry Stotts. They brought in Chauncey Billups, a definite risk with, again, a team that feels like anytime
Wait,
you have Damian Lillard, there's expectations. And
well,
swinging on Chauncey Billups is a fine decision. Like
but
none of us had a problem with that hire.
right, but we talked about Chauncey Billups' past and the things that he was going to have to answer when he got hired there. And
Uh,
now it looks even weirder now because of this code of conduct violation, doesn't it?
I mean, yes and no.
Okay.
With Chauncey Billups, yeah, I mean, Chauncey Billups does have to answer those questions, and it's just a decision the Blazers made to have him as a
Yeah.
coach. Was it enough to get him disqualified? Potentially. He maintains innocence. There weren't any charges filed, so it's tough for me to adequately be
Sure.
his judge there in that case. Um, Again, I just think it's both things. Like Neil Olshey just wasn't worth it anymore. Like he
Yeah.
had issues in the workplace. The team wasn't producing. To me, that's all that you need at that point. Regardless of we'll see what happens in this future. Like we said, we'll have to let that play out. That'll play out behind the scenes,
Yeah.
and other NBA teams will have to do their homework in that regard. In terms of the Blazers themselves, I mean, of course, every NBA team should be watching this right now because they're one of the most unique scenarios in the sense that, yeah, I don't think it's working right now, but they have a lot of pieces there that could work in a lot of other places. And there's a way that you can reset this very quickly. Like the Blazers are one of the teams who can go out and adequately trade for a superstar. Now, I think they made it clear as possible that they're not moving Dame Lillard. I don't think they should move Dame Lillard yet. Like,
I
you
think
just
they
don't.
should.
Well, of course, I selfishly, if I'm being a Sixers fan, think they should, but I'm realistically going like you just don't trade players that are that talented. Like I, franchise players like that don't come along that often. They're hard to find. Like I don't think you trade Damian Lillard until you've absolutely exhausted every other scenario. And I guess that's why I'd be frustrated. And I think Dame is rightfully frustrated with Portland is they haven't even remotely come close to exhausting every necessary scenario. Like there are situations where they can put themselves in play for another star player. The report from Shams out today is that the Blazers want to be in contention with Ben Simmons, is that Dame Lillard wants to play with Ben Simmons. Hello? No shit. We've been saying this the whole time. Everyone's been saying this the whole time. It's a perfect example of a team that is primed to make a move, has the assets to do it, and I don't understand why they aren't doing it. I mean, Ben Simmons, look at this team. This is a team that is ranked 30th in defense right now. You don't think
Mhm.
that Ben Simmons would be a massive boost that they need? Ben Simmons and Dame Lillard's game also complement each other extremely well. For all the weaknesses that we've talked about with Ben Simmons and that have been obviously broken down to a micro level, as we've talked about the end of his season last year and what he could bring back in the offseason and headed into this season with Philadelphia. Like for all that, Ben Simmons is still a really good player. And if I'm Portland, like that is the type of swing I take because you're going to potentially lose Dame if you don't. And then at that case,
Well,
what? He walks for nothing and you just completely have to blow it up and start from scratch. Like to me, this is a way to blow it up, but not entirely blow up. And if this works out the way I truly, genuinely believe a Dame Lillard and Ben Simmons pairing could work, you might be right back in contention sooner than later.
yeah, and obviously we've seen all the random little things that the players have been doing around that. Like we've seen Ben Simmons that he liked the one of the posts about it, right? Which I mean makes me feel some kind of way, but whatever. But
Why? This is a best case scenario for me.
no, because that makes me feel like him saying it's a mental health thing isn't why. You know what I mean? Like
Justin, come on, you believe that?
no, I don't. But him doing that is like it feels like it's a middle finger in a way.
Everything he's done has been a whole middle finger in a way. What you really thought Ben Simmons had mental health issues?
No, well, that's what he was telling us.
Ben Simmons' mental health issues are a middle finger to everyone who actually has mental health issues. And I'm really not trying to belittle mental health because it is extremely important. And I think there are many guys in this league who have bravely come out and talked about their mental health issues, like Kevin Love, like DeMar
Mhm.
DeRozan. Ben Simmons is a spoiled child who's not getting his way for the first time in his life and is now dealing with the consequences of that. I'm fine with him going to Portland. You know why? Because it can retool the Sixers with guys that want to be there and they adequately have the players to retool it.
CJ McCollum.
Yeah, give me CJ McCollum, give me Anthony Simons, and give me a first rounder, and we're off, baby. Like, we're there. I'm done. Pick up the phone and get it done.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, the Portland Trailblazers, in terms of points per game, they're 11th in the league right now. So the offense, in theory, is better than average. And then the 76ers are 19th in the league for that, so they could use a scoring punch like CJ McCollum. So
They need a boost.
yeah,
It makes complete sense for both sides, the same way it has the whole offseason. This makes so much sense. Portland desperately needs to do something different. And if they're going to keep Damian Lillard, to me, this is the best way to do it, knowing what the market is. There aren't any better stars out there right now,
well,
honestly.
and Dame's, I think if I have it right, because I heard Woj talking about going to be up for the Supermax extension. So you do have to decide, like, if is Dame, like, if
Oh, they're on the clock. Like they're
yeah,
on the clock with Dame. We say it's Dame time all the time. They're on Dame time right now. Like everything they do matters. How
well,
the Chauncey Billups hire mattered. How they retool matters. Like because if it still continues to stink, like I think Damian Lillard fired his warning shot this offseason, right? I think there was some smoke there where he's I don't think Damian Lillard wants out of Portland. I do truly believe that Damian Lillard wants to make it work in Portland, and I think he is a super loyal guy who would love nothing more than to bring a title to that city. And that's why we love Damian
well,
Lillard so much. Why so many NBA guys and NBA fans, I should say, identify with Damian Lillard. I also think Damian Lillard is sick of doing the same thing over and over again, wants to
yeah.
play competitive basketball, which you can't blame him for when you're a player of his caliber. But I mean, the fact that he didn't, go to team up with LeBron and Anthony Davis, hasn't forced his way out yet. Like that, there's some good here for Portland. Like Damian Lillard could have very actively been said, "I'm done here," and I'm done and not playing
Well,
anymore. and
Well,
they could be at a big time fiasco. They're avoiding that right now, but they do these next couple of moves and what they do with their roster matters. That's the biggest thing, and I think everyone's going to be watching is with them letting Neil Olshey go. I think that's the first time publicly where they're going, okay, it's not working. We need to change it. Neil Olshey wasn't going to change it on
mhm.
top of his allegations. It's the perfect combo for them to move on. And now we're watching. And I think, again, they have a lot of players on that roster who are going to provide value and who have value around the league and that contenders would be interested in. Like Portland can come out of this looking very good. Like they can come out of this again playing competitive basketball, I think, sooner than later. Get the Ben Simmons deal done. Like the same way I ripped on Sacramento the other week, where it's just like, I don't understand what the holdup is here and why you wouldn't try to shake it up right now. They're in dire need of a shakeup. Like
Get
they're
it done.
arguably number one in the entire league to shake the roster up. Get it done, make Dame happy, and try to win some basketball games.
Well, and maybe this is a conversation for another podcast. Maybe it's an off-season conversation, but like we said, Dame is up for an extension. Uh, he's 31 now, you know? I'm not saying we've seen him slow down, but depending on whatever money you end up giving him, you're going to start looking at what, 34, 35, where's he at and how much money is he making? Cuz it's probably going to be a lot, you know?
I think Dame's game is going to age well. I just think you want to make sure you're competing as he ages well. Like when
Sure.
he's a
Yeah.
35-year-old, you don't want to be a disaster
Yeah.
area. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Dame Lillard is thankfully like, the way I talk about with Embiid, the Sixers have the urgency in the sense that like I don't think Embiid's prime is going to be very, very long. I think by his mid 30s, Embiid probably maybe not that good anymore.
Mhm.
Where I'm not worried about that. Like it's certainly possible. We've seen, not everyone is LeBron James in terms of longevity, but
Sure.
Damian Lillard has the type of skill set that should, in theory, age pretty well for a while. Like he's a guy that I give a supermax to that I'm not worried about it looking like a John Wall contract in 2 years. Like I think Dame is going to be pretty darn good for quite a while.
My last thing on Dame was his response to a reporter asking him about the Blazers organization and all the reports about him being frustrated with the Blazers organization, and his response is, "These MFers love drama too much." I
Well,
was
I
like,
mean, yeah, of
yeah,
course. NBA is where the
yeah,
drama happens. It feels like no. I mean,
hmm
part of its off-season appeal has essentially been it's drama all the time. Um, again, Dame Lillard's right. They do love drama, and I think there are a lot of people. We talk about this all the time. Like there are a lot of people who always, I think, are just trying to, get their stars off the team, if you will. Just trying to get them ran out of the league more or less or get them out of markets, I should say, and get them into the league's premier markets. Like hey, we saw it with Giannis in Milwaukee. We've seen it with Dame in Portland. We see it with Bradley Beal in Washington, for example. Like there's always going to be that element. And I can get the frustration like that. I'd be frustrated too if I was a Portland fan and everyone was trying to trade the best player we've had in decades, essentially. But it is is it decade? Yeah, it's probably decades. God, I wish Brandon Roy had stayed healthy longer. That was
was
what it would have been such a more interesting conversation because the Blazers have always had good players. It's just the Blazers are without a doubt the most cursed injury franchise. Like with even when they won a title with Bill Walton, he lost a good portion of his prime because of injuries.
yeah. I was gonna jokingly bring up Greg Oden, which is another one you were talking about. Same idea. I mean,
Yeah, Bowie got hurt. Obviously that one's super infamous. Brandon Roy was great when he was healthy. It's just his prime got robbed. I mean, he truly, I believe, would have been like one of the best players of that generation had he stayed healthy.
what about
Um,
LaMarcus Aldridge? I mean, he
yeah, really good
he was there
player.
for a while.
No,
Yeah,
like, yeah, and he played his best years in Portland.
yeah,
So
for
I
sure.
no, I definitely think Lamarcus Aldridge is more like I don't put him on the level, obviously, with like Dame and Brandon. What I think Brandon Roy could have been,
Hmm.
and Bill Walton. I mean, Dame and Bill are the greatest players in Portland franchise history. Oh, actually, no, you know what? Never mind. I'm disrespecting Clyde Drexler. Clyde Drexler should be right up there too.
Mm-hmm.
He actually arguably is number one. Um, Blazers fans, let us know how you rank that. I'm really interested how you rank um, Dame, Clyde Drexler, Bill Walton, and then kind of like, sprinkle some LMA and Brandon Roy in there. I'm curious to see how all these guys kind of shake out in your mind. All right, who's balling, who's falling? Our NBA version of the stock market. We always like to start with the good before the bad. Justin and I have a co-ball in this week, and that, of course, is the Phoenix Suns. The streak is over, ended at 18 games before the Warriors finally did snap it. In Golden State, they beat the Suns 118-96 the other night. The Suns are actually playing later as we record this. They're playing San Antonio, trying to, bounce back from, I'm sure, that super demoralizing loss. But give the Suns credit, man. I mean, they pulled off, when we were talking about this streak initially, they had the back-to-back with New York and Brooklyn on the road. Obviously, the marquee game in Phoenix with Golden State. And then they had another game with Detroit after that where they handled their business, pretty comfortably, won all those games, a franchise record in streak. To do it without Booker, too, at points as well with the hamstring injury, leaving during that Warriors game, not having him against Detroit. It's super duper impressive. Both these teams 19-4, the Warriors and Suns, as of recording this podcast. This sure looks like a Western Conference Finals matchup right now. And if it is, please give me all 7 games of this. Like,
I think it might have been Stephen A. Smith that ended up saying it, but somebody on ESPN was like, "This is a 7-series game matchup right here," and I'm like, "Yes, it is. Let's have that. I want that, because that's going to be really fun to watch in a playoff setting like that."
And it's just it's hard pressed. I mean, again, we're past the 20 game sample size at this point. I'm just hard pressed to find anybody in the West that really threatens them. I mean, the only one in the ballpark to me right now is Utah. Um, I don't think Utah is better than this Phoenix team and this Golden State team. I do think Utah is better than everyone else in the West. It feels like, when I'm looking at look at the standings right now with Memphis and with the Clippers and with the Lakers and Dallas and with Denver with all the injuries they have. Like, I truly feel like Utah is better than all of those teams we just mentioned. But I don't. I don't think that Utah is quite in the same ballpark as Phoenix and Golden State are. Like, I have to see them do that essentially.
Yeah, they're the ones that I'm like the most, I guess, like nervous about or hesitant to be confident in, I guess, is the way to
Mhm.
put it. Like, they're, if you're looking at all the teams that were there last year and are here now, and what you expect from them going forward right now, they're the ones that I look at the most like, I don't know if I can trust you to make a run at it again.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So
So who's fallen for you this week?
for me, it is the photos going around again of Zion, who does not look like he is anywhere near game shape, and everybody is poking fun at it yet again. And someone photoshopped the crying Jordan meme face onto his knees, and I was like, that's just messed up, man. So here we are. I know there was a setback, I believe, with Zion. And that's why he's not out there yet or whatever, but we're just going to continue to follow this cycle and kick the can down the road and just keep on waiting.
Yeah, I mean, so he ramped up his basketball
Yes.
activities, so I don't want to necessarily judge off a picture. I guess I understand the frustration. It hasn't been a great season for the Pelicans. Everyone is eager to get Zion back. We hope that he's in the best shape he can be in. We'll see. I mean, there's nothing else to say. We'll see at this point. I've essentially put Zion in the camp with Ben Simmons rumors, where I'm just like, I'll
Hmm.
talk about it when it happens. Like, I
Yeah.
don't really have much else to add at this point,
Yeah.
other than I hope he's healthy and I want him to be healthy for everyone's sake. Like, I want all the league stars to be healthy. We've seen what he can do when he's playing. I want to talk about Zion on the basketball court again, hopefully here sooner than later. Fallen for me this week is DeMar DeRozan. A bit of cruel irony. He just was named Eastern Conference Player of the Week, and then they announced today that he has to go into COVID protocol. So there is a chance he misses a week. He's just playing great basketball right now. Obviously, the Bulls, one of the good stories of the early season so far. Currently a half game off first place with Brooklyn in the Eastern Conference right now. DeRozan's been a huge part of that. Just a bummer that, again, as we deal with, it seems like DeMar DeRozan was vaccinated. They meant because, obviously there are a little different standards if you aren't in terms of when you can come back. If he's able to return a positive test, he'll be able to get back out there sooner than later. or not a positive test, a negative test.
Mhm.
That's when it's what we're hoping to see with this. But just unfortunate given the way that the Bulls are, rolling right now. A lot of good vibes around the squad, and that just COVID continues to mess with this, and where you miss guys for long extended periods of time.
Yeah, there's a good chunk of guys right now with, in the COVID safety protocols. Obviously, LeBron James being one that they had talked about earlier in the week or last week, but it was a false positive, so he's already back, which was a whole nother thing. And I liked a lot of people. I think it was like, I want to say it was against the Kings. I could have that wrong, but a lot of people were poking fun, saying like, "Good job, you got him stuck out of the game for that night."
So
um,
I
I don't
haven't
know.
loved like for all this like LeBron off the court. I do largely appreciate. I appreciate all the work he does. I didn't love
Sure.
how he acted about the vaccine. Like he is vaccinated. I thought he was kind of weird about not telling people that he was vaccinated.
Yeah.
It
I
was
felt
just
like it was, I mean, and I know it's not even remotely the same comparison, but my coworkers always bring up when they wanted Tiger to speak out about certain political things, and
Mhm.
he never wanted to do it, And I know it's different because LeBron has spoken out about certain political things. Um, so that kind of creates like oh, so you're willing to talk about one but not the other? Like, what's going on?
Well,
So
my response to that is I also don't think vaccines should be political, and that's sad.
I
Again,
agree.
that it's the state of the affairs in this country that vaccines are political. The coronavirus kills Democrats and Republicans. Like it's about being vaccinated. It has nothing to do with your
Yeah.
politics. It's about being as safe as possible, especially with a new variant. The one thing LeBron did tweet, and let me preface this by saying I am fully vaccinated. I hope everyone gets vaccinated. I think it's the smart thing to do. And I think even if you get coronavirus, then that you're probably going to have a mild case and that you are not going to die, which is obviously the name of the game out here. But LeBron tweeted about how he was watching his son's game and they were making them, while they were playing the game, wear the mask below their chin. And he's just like, what is the point here? And I got to be honest, like, I think that's absolutely ridiculous. Like, what is the point there? If
There
you want to make
was
them wear the mask when they're on the sideline, or you want to make somebody wear a mask indoors, like if that's just the regulation, so be it. But wearing the mask in your chin during a game is just absolute nonsense. Like, what are you doing? And that's the type of stuff that makes people not believe in masks and in science and in stuff like this. Like when it's
yeah.
just when it's it kind of flies in the face of logic a little bit.
Yeah, and I can't imagine it's very comfortable to play a game like that. I forget what I saw a highlight of another game where they were wearing the mask while playing
Oh yeah,
basketball.
no, that definitely was a thing at one point. Like I
Mhm.
had to work. Like I mean, I remember I had to when COVID first started, there was a weird little bit where we couldn't go in the gym
Mhm.
or we could still go in our gym. They hadn't shut it down yet, but you had to have a mask on. And so I did like I had a like I wasn't doing anything crazy, but like I did the elliptical with a mask on for an hour and like it's
Yeah.
not a big difference, like big difference, but oh, it's noticeable. Like I wouldn't have been doing much more like
Well
I wouldn't have tried to really do too crazy intense cardio if I had a mask on for sure, which
well,
playing basketball at a high level certainly is obviously.
and I don't know if it's, like, the asthma that I have or anything like that. Like, a lot of times when I see like, if I'm watching a movie and somebody in the movie is, like, underwater and not able to breathe, or they're just having trouble breathing for whatever happens in the movie, it'll,
Mm.
I'll feel my asthma and be like, "Oh, crap," you know? So, the second there's something, actually making me feel like I can't breathe, it, sets that, almost, not suffocation, but, claustrophobic reaction where my body starts getting all tense. It's crazy, man. Like, I hate it so much.
No,
Um
it is. It's claustrophobia essentially. Like I
Mhm.
get that. It's the
It's
same way.
wild.
Like, do you remember the movie? Did you watch the movie Gravity?
No,
There were a lot of people who were like that with the motion sickness
really.
and with just the claustrophobia because you're drifting in space and there was no. I
Mhm,
mean, because it's essentially obviously large movies them floating out in space hopelessly.
mhm.
Um, there were a lot of people who I remember kind of having reactions like that. And yeah, no, I don't think that's unheard of. Definitely not
Mm-mm.
alone on that front.
No, thank you. So, we switch over to some NBA players that are hurt and, gonna be out for a little bit. We'll start with Bam for the Miami Heat. He had to undergo, surgery to repair a torn ligament. I'm not even going to try to say the actual ligament, but it was in his right thumb. The team announced that last week, so obviously he's going to miss some time while coming back from injury. Orlando's rookie Jalen Suggs fractured his finger also, so he's going to miss some time as well.
Yeah, a double whammy. And obviously, we talked a little bit last week about the Nuggets of Michael Porter and that
Yeah.
being the worry long term. But I mean, I guess I'll start with my unofficial hometown, Orlando, with Jalen Suggs. And again, the Magic don't have expectations this year. They're a pretty bad basketball team. We all know that. Um, but part of being a bad basketball team and what you were excited about with them is to, see a lot of these young guys play and see how they fit together. And, you want to see Jalen Suggs and Cole Anthony play and look at what hopefully your backcourt looks like for the foreseeable future.
Hmm.
It's just it speaks to the Magic's run of just unfortunate injuries and how they've never really been able to have all these guys together at the same time, all their young players. Because it's like, you've got Jalen Suggs missing time now. Cole Anthony missed games. Now he comes back and you lose Suggs. Jonathan Isaac obviously hasn't played all year. Markelle Fultz hasn't played all year. Now Markelle Fultz is a lot closer to returning. So it's like, but it's like, you're all excited. You get Fultz back. You finally have something to be positive about. And now you lose Suggs. So it's like, it's a continued battle of attrition, it feels like. Chuma Okeke, when they drafted, was hurt. So he
Hmm.
missed time initially when he came in. And it's been so unfortunate for Orlando in terms of games missed and just number of overall injuries. And for a guy like Suggs, who, I think needed some more playing time to acclimate to the league, this is vital development time on a team where he's obviously going to get a lot of reps. He's going to, be Orlando's the type of team where your young guys are going to have those growing pains and you want to see them get them out now. And unfortunately, with him missing time, not able to do that.
Yeah, and I was wondering, I was gonna pull up. So his percentage, where is it? 33% field goal percentage. Obviously isn't great, but when I was trying to pull up, if it will let me do it, NBA .com changed their they changed their whole thing and it's absolutely screwed me up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they changed their site, it would've been, I think it was last year, honestly, but I still haven't been able to, we used to, because we had been doing the podcast so much, I used to be able to putz through this thing, so fast,
Mm.
but, right now, I can't even. Here we go, the splits, this is what I'm looking for, I think. No, maybe not even. No. Alright, well, it's not gonna work for me. I was gonna try to see how he was doing towards the end before the injury, if the percentage was, looking like it was trending up in the right direction. Um, oh, here we go. I found it. It took me 9 years, but let's see, last 5 games. If it loads, it's not gonna load.
Is this
Okay,
where
but to what I was trying to pull up, it confirmed in the last 3 games that he played before he was hurt, he was shooting closer to a 40% field goal percentage. So that shows the improvement that we were looking for there. And, obviously we're not going to get to see that develop longer throughout the season. And that just feels like that's been the story for Orlando for the past, I don't know, 10 years at this point.
Well, that's the problem, and that's what we talk about often here with the fan base. Is the fan base is exhausted, rightfully,
Yeah.
because they just had. I mean, Dwight Howard got traded in 2012, and then Rob Hennigan took over. Which, I mean, that essentially his tenure should be it borderline violates the Geneva Convention against crimes against humanity and cruel and unusual punishment and all those other things. I mean, the Magic have had talented players, but they just were a rudderless ship for a while. They were competitive. Now they're going into rebuild again. And I just think it's tough because they haven't really played. I mean, they made the playoffs 2 years with Steve Clifford, but they haven't really played any meaningful basketball since Dwight Howard left in terms of
Mhm.
going forward and advancing in the playoffs. And so it's tough to sell fans on another rebuild, especially when they're just kind of bad right now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way around it. They're a bad basketball team. Now, the good news with that is that they're going to be very well in contention. Like I look at the young core and I go, okay, you've got a couple here, and you very well could get number one again this year. Like this is a situation where, again, continue to add as much high end talent as possible. The injuries stink because they're largely unavoidable. I also think there are scenarios where it's tough because you can't count on Jonathan Isaac. Like if Jonathan Isaac was healthy, I do think this looks a little bit different. Like I think he's that good when he plays. I still have a lot of stock in him. He just isn't able to get on the basketball court. But this rebuild can turn around a whole lot sooner than later, assuming they draft well and can suck up being bad for
Well,
1 or 2 more years. It's hard to sell that fan base because they've been bad for so long. But the light
right.
at the end of the tunnel can end or you can get there very quickly if you nail a number one pick.
Well, and not even that. I just feel like in general, if you say you go into next year with whatever pick you get, this year, you get yourself a top player, obviously. And Suggs is back. I'm not saying he's going to be out for the whole season. I don't even think they've said that. They just said extended period of time, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but Suggs is back, and Cole Anthony's back, and Markelle Fultz is back, and Jonathan Isaac is playing, and you have whoever the newest addition to the team is. Like, yeah, you could that could turn things around pretty quickly in general and be an exciting team to watch. So, it's one of those things where, again, if healthy, it could be great. But at this point, I'm literally going to put no stock in the Magic ever being healthy.
No, it's really unfortunate. I mean, we mentioned it earlier, but if Portland didn't exist, you could make a case of the Magic since their inception are one of the more cursed injury franchises.
Yeah.
In terms of guys, just Penny Hardaway being the most prime example. But they have a lot of years, or a lot of years where they've had guys just miss significant amounts of injuries. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's tough without a doubt. Going back to the Heat now, staying in Florida, Bam Adebayo. I mean, they're going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. The expectation, it seems like, is that it's going to be more towards the 6 week deal. That would put him back in the middle of January. Dwayne Dedman is going to start in the meantime. Obviously, I think it goes without saying that this is a massive blow for Miami, a team that is trying to stay competitive here in the playoff race and is trying to stay towards the higher seeding in the Eastern Conference. Um, like I said, Dwayne Dedman is going to start. They're not necessarily that deep at front court. Like that's what's a little bit disappointing is that they're going to have some questions there to figure out. They also could go small. There's no doubt about it.
Hmm.
The free agent market isn't great. Like that's the thing too. It's like there's not even really a ton of guys on the waiver wire. Like we just saw DeMarcus Cousins sign with Milwaukee. He would have been a guy that could have maybe filled in short term. Um, I mean, who else are we looking at? I mean, are we looking at Bismack Biyombo? You're going to have to really get creative there. But
Yeah, but I also don't necessarily feel like I don't know. I don't know. I don't feel like you need to hit a panic button right now. Like they're 5-5 in their last 10 games. I get it that they got to figure out the depth part of it, but everything's so tight right now that you kind of have, you know, you you don't want to overreact. Like say they lose one more game and they drop to the 7th seed technically in the East. It's just one game, like you don't have to hit the panic button.
no, I don't think you want to hit the panic button. But I think I'm concerned. Like, normally this isn't an Eastern Conference, it feels like this year, where you can just kind of like cheat on your homework and eventually turn it
Sure.
on eventually. Like with LeBron and a lot of those Cavs teams, we would just be like, whatever, they're going to flip the switch. We know they're the better team
Mhm.
realistically. Like the Eastern Conference is really good this year. The seeding is going to matter. I'm not suggesting they're going to fall all the way as low as 6 or 7, but if you get a Milwaukee or you get a Brooklyn in the first round, like that's not a great scenario. There are multiple other teams that you would rather get. And obviously avoiding the play-in game too is the most key scenario for everybody. Again, they'll look to have him back by mid-January. I don't think this is some major like season altering injury. They're at 4 right now. Washington started to slump a little bit.
No, but I
Um,
think there could be potential from the aspect of if they do slide a little bit and then they get worried and try to rush Bam back too quick and then he re-aggravates or isn't fully healthy and then can't play for, you know, an actual playoff push, then there is a problem there.
Oh no, 100%. Like I don't disagree with that at all. They're playing for May and June, not playing for January and December. So yeah, no, I 100% definitely need to err on the side of caution. There is no planet where they should be rushing Bam out of IO back immediately.
Mm-mm.
Thank you everyone for listening to this episode of the Drive and Dish NBA podcast. Appreciate you guys as always. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, check us out on Stitcher, Google Play Store, Spotify, Spreaker, TuneIn, Amazon Music, anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us. Use the promo code DISH20, manscaped.com, get 20% off and get free shipping. Get all our Christmas shopping done.
Yep. And also find us on YouTube, Drive and Dish NBA podcast. You can find us there.